Goblins is the easiest army to handle. Cheap and fast units with no heroes to start with provide you the best opportunity to harass your opponent. Key point of Goblin strategy is the use of Spider Riders. Spider Riders can be used for offense but also for defense if you switch their weapon to bow. Still, Goblins are pretty weak in defense, so it is absolutely important to focus on attacking and not give your opponent any chance to strike back. Goblins is the only army that you want to start with no hero. This gives you the opportunity to spam lots of troops. First thing you should do is to click on your first fortress upgrade, the Bat Cloud. This will enable you to see further for incoming attacks or even to spy on your opponent's base. First two structures should be one Goblin Cave and one Spider Pit. When they are done, click on 4 Goblin Warriors and 2 Spiderlings to come. Your next 4 structures should be farms. When your first units will come out of your barracks, you should send them right away to harass your opponent. Try targeting your opponent's farms with your goblins and your opponent builders with your spiderlings. Also try not to give your opponent a single break. Keep sending him troops until he has only 1 or 2 farms left. This means that he will not be able to produce many troops and therefore will be vulnerable to further attacks. This is why a second and maybe a third Goblin Cave might be needed in order to produce units faster. Still, one of your top priorities should be to upgrade your Spider Pit. When both Spiderlings have come out of your Spider Pit, you should upgrade it and start producing some Spider Riders. When the upgrade is done, produce as many Spider Riders as you can while still harassing your opponent with Goblins. The more spiders you make, the less Goblins you will want to produce, until you reach a point where you will only have Spider Riders. After the point where you will have an army of around 8 Spider Riders, the game becomes a lot easier. Spiders are doing excellent damage with their swords, but also with their bows. So you just see how your opponent is playing and act accordingly. If he's playing with spearmen or cavalry, you just switch your spiders to bow and kill them. Against all other units, you just keep them on sword and attack. Of course, War Chant on your spiders and the bats on enemy forces will be more efficient and should be used constantly. Regarding your power points, most of the times you will need the bats first, but if you're doing well in offense and you have minimum harassment from your opponent, you might want to choose either War Chant or Tainted Land first for better efficiency of your attacks. Also, from the point where you have a huge army of Spider Riders and resources will start to add up, some lumber mills will be needed for increasing your income even more. Like I mentioned earlier, Goblins is the only army that you don't want to start with a hero. That doesn't mean that their heroes are not good, they are just expensive. In late game, however, when you will have plenty of resources, you should definitely choose Gorky to strengthen your army. Gorky costs 3000, but he really worth the money since he levels up very fast and his powers are amazing. When you get him for the first time, try to send him to a lair first in order to reach level 3 and be able to mount him on his scorpion and take him along with your Spider Riders. After that, make sure you attack some of your opponent's buildings to level him even further. At level 4 he provides leadership for your troops, and at level 6 he has the Poison Stinger, which is excellent for killing enemy heroes. Finally, at level 10 he has the Call from the Deep, which summons 3 fire drakes under your control and is probably one of the strongest powers of the game. You can use this skill before attacking your opponent's fortress in order for the drakes to kill all the enemy troops, and then your spiders can attack his base with no trouble. You can also use it in defense if you find yourself facing a strong attack. If you find yourself with even more money and want to get another hero, then Drogoth is the one. Like all flying heroes, he can be used to destroy farms fast and also provide a very nice defense against attacks where your opponent will have no archers. His level 1 skill, the Fireball, is good against heroes, but can also be used against concentrated units. His level 3 skill, the Wing Blast, is rarely used, but his level 6 skill, the Fireflight, is one of his most powerful skills. Use it against concentrated enemy units and it will kill most of them instantly. Other than that, Incinerate can also be used against massive armies, but since Drogoth will be chosen only when you have reached late game and since he levels up pretty slow, it will be very rare for you to reach him at this level. Note that if your opponent has an army with strong archers, such as elves or men, Drogoth should be avoided. Shelob could be used against elves, since she is the ultimate hero slayer, but she requires very good handling and should be avoided in general. Goblin units have excellent damage, but most of them suffer in armor. The only way to counter this is by spamming lots of them together and constantly using powers on them that strengthen their armor and damage. During mid-game, try having at least 3 Goblin Caves and 2 Spider Pits, and in late game, a couple of fissures will be needed in order to start producing half-trolls. If you see your opponent is playing with massive cavalry and you are having trouble holding him back with your spiders, then perhaps you might want to produce some half-trolls earlier. The basic principle is that you want to use goblins against heroes, spiders against infantry, and half-trolls against cavalry. See how your opponent is playing and adjust your strategy accordingly. Don't forget to use your goblin special ability, the Poison. Another interesting goblin characteristic is the ability to transfer units through their farms. Like with dwarves, this can be used to transfer units from one location to another faster, although goblins are pretty fast in general and this might not be needed. Still, this ability can help you defend some of your faraway farms from enemy troops. Like mentioned earlier, the Bat Cloud should be the first thing you choose when the game begins. During mid-game, you might want to spend some resources to get the Fire Arrows if you are facing flying heroes, or the Razor Spines if you are facing massive cavalry. In late game, you will definitely need the Web Cocoon to decrease your fortress vulnerability. If you have upgraded to the Web Cocoon and still find yourself with extra resources, then you should definitely choose the Drake's Nest and then produce your Fire Drake. It will cost you 4,500 in total, but it will be worth it since the Drake is an excellent weapon in both defense and offense. In regards of your fortress fortifications, choosing solo spider hole expansions is the best way to go. Enemy troops and heroes will find it very hard to bypass those little spiders while they will be taking tons of damage in between. Use Tainted Land around your fort to increase the spider hole expansion's damage. If you are up against Mordor, some Arrow Tower expansions might be needed instead. Key point of Goblin magic is the use of the 10 power point, the Scavenger. Scavenger gives you extra resources for every unit you kill, so given you are constantly attacking your opponent, this power point will provide you with the resources to continue spamming. This is why it is very important to get it as fast as you can. Of course, the bats and either War Chant or Tainted Land should be chosen first to ensure you will cause as much damage with your army as possible, but after those two skills, the Scavenger is the way to go. After that, you should simply save power points, around 40 of them. The reason is simple: the Balrog. The Balrog is the strongest power point from all evil armies. It can wipe out an entire defense on its own. Make sure you use some of his awesome skills like the Ignite to give him plus 50% armor and 200% damage, or the Whip to destroy enemy buildings fast, or even the Fire Breath to exterminate any army in its path. Of course, in order to get the Balrog power point, you will first need the Darkness, which comes handy providing with leadership all your troops on the map for a decent amount of time. The other two 15 power points, the Watcher and the Worm, can be used upon an incoming attack. Use them directly under the enemy troops and you will kill most of them instantly. Other than that, Spiderlings and the Wildmen of Dunland can be used for destroying some of your opponent's buildings inside his base or to strengthen up your next attack. When you reach late game with goblins, you might find that spider riders cannot do the job. You will definitely want to upgrade their weapons in order to cause more damage, but they don't take any armor upgrades, which makes them vulnerable against strong defenses. Instead of feeding your opponent with power points, simply make half trolls instead. They have pretty much the same damage but have better armor, which you can and should upgrade at some point. Half trolls also cost you less command points than spiders, so this means you will be able to support a larger army of half trolls instead of spiders. If you have 8 or 9 units of fully upgraded half trolls and use ward chant on them and the badge on your opponent, you will definitely cause him some major damage, no matter what. If you still find it hard to attack, perhaps if your opponent has lots of towers, then some giants might be needed to take down his towers first before you launch your attack. Remember that the most characteristic element of goblins is their spam. In order to be able to spam as much as possible, you will definitely need to upgrade all your unit production buildings. If you are playing with spiders, upgrade your spider pits. If you are playing with half trolls, upgrade your fissures. And of course, don't be too late on your weapon and armor upgrades. Protecting your production buildings is crucial with goblins if you want to keep getting resources to spend on your spam. Always keep some units inside your farms in order to provide protection for them. Also, most of the times during mid-game, you will find yourself with around 2 or 3,000 that you want to spend. Be very careful on where you will choose to spend them. Your options are two: either weapons and armor upgrades or gore kill. If you are doing good up until this point and you think that upgrades can help you deliver a fatal blow and win the game, go with this option. But if you are struggling with your army and you think you are going into late game, then choose gore kill. His powers will help you a lot better to handle your opponent.